There's a special place in my heart for a little bit of violence.
Hello and Kate Míle Fáilte to MudderRucker, the podcast all about Irish women's rugby. Join me, Ailbhe O'Nolan.
And me, Cian O'Mullor.
As we bring you the latest on the Irish women's team, from squad selections to match analysis and everything in between. Each week we'll be joined by some of the biggest names in Irish women's rugby to get their insights, stories and behind-the-scenes perspectives on life at the top of the game.
If you enjoy the show, be sure to follow, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us to grow.
Now, strap on your scrum cap, get stuck in, and let's talk Irish women's rugby. Welcome to episode 2 of MudderRucker. Joining us again this week, Irish international Munster and UL Bows captain Chloe Pearse. Welcome, Chloe.
Thanks for having me back. I wasn't sure if you would.
We hummed and hawed about it. Sure, thought we'd have you back, all right. Also, I'm delighted to welcome Irish international and Ulster stalwart Ilse van Staden. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely our pleasure.
Yeah, delighted to have you.
Today we discuss round 1 of the Six Nations, the highs, the lows and the standout moments. We will get to know our incredible guests and look ahead to round 2 next week. If I can though, Ilse, I'd like to start with a little bit of chat with you, if that's okay. So, originally from South Africa, you moved to Ireland in 2011, I believe. Started playing with Ulster in 2012. Yes. Ireland debut in 2017, is that correct?
It was Six Nations, and it was actually against Scotland in Scoutstown.
Very good, in Glasgow.
Yeah.
What was that first cap like?
Surreal.
Yeah.
It was surreal. I remember my parents were over here for Christmas the year before in 2016, and I got the phone call to join camp on the 2nd of January. Of course, the first people I phoned was my parents because they've always been very supportive of my sporting endeavours. If I wanted to do something, they were my biggest fans, they were my biggest support, and there was nothing that I couldn't do that they would have been like, yeah, that's a little silly. Rugby was actually, initially they were like, not so sure about this, but if you want to do it, go ahead. And so yeah, they basically flew back from South Africa about 28 days after they flew back to South Africa after the holiday to come and watch me get my first cap against Scotland.
Amazing. That's some incredibly proud parents. Speaking of your sporting endeavours, so just to give a quick kind of a personality capture for you. Retired rugby player, butcher, full-time business owner, wife, mother, and now American football player? What brought you to that?
Contact, violence.
You'd miss it, wouldn't you?
There's a special place in my heart for a little bit of violence, especially if it's controlled. So I have to keep going. I do believe that if you stop completely, you lose it. So I have got my body for the age that I am, 32 plus that. I'm in fairly good shape still. I am, touch wood, really privileged not to have any severe injuries or severe niggles. And I just believe if you stop while you are still enjoying it, then you're losing out, because you get to do this once and you never know when it's going to be the last time that you do something. So I just literally, this is what I'm doing. I am just using it all up. I want none of my joints to be fine when I'm really, really, really old.
I love that attitude. I think that's the best attitude ever. Chloe, you still be going in your 60s, won't you?
No. No. Ilse will outplay me. I've told her this. I will pack it in a year or two. But I'm at it about 18 years now, and my joints don't work already, so I'm already there.
Brilliant.
I didn't say my joints work. I just said they are still working.
Okay.
Not as good as they used to be.
Minimal level of function. I like it. Right, we might move on and chat a little bit about the games at the weekend. I suppose we should probably chat a little bit about rugby. So, Ireland versus France, first game of the Six Nations, kicked off in Belfast. It was a very interesting game, and certainly for me, I think Ireland finished that game in a very strange place for me, where they were positively disappointed to lose against France. And I say that because we haven't beaten them since 2018. We haven't come within 20 points of them in that time. And, you know, we finished within 12 points of them. You look at the game, there was 31 handling errors by Ireland versus 9 from France. There was 20 turnovers conceded. There was 20 missed tackles. But in looking at that, there was some huge positives. The line out with 95% success. That was the platform on which we scored 3 tries. What did the match look like for you?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Those turnover stats and handling errors are at this level just probably not where they need to be. And ultimately, that was what caught us. You know, like we spoke last week about which France would show up. And to be honest, you know, it wasn't the best version of France that showed up. Like when they played, but they gave away a lot of penalties and they didn't really contest the line out really well. So it allowed us a really good platform and we had their number. You know, they think they're going to stay down and smash, and we were on appeal with Ailbhe away for coming around the corner and, you know, 3 players can't stop her. So we kind of had their number as well. We anticipated that really well. But against probably the other 3 teams, I would say Wales, Scotland, Italy, we'd have won that game. Just unfortunately, you know, that French flair for those 2 tries that came out of nothing, you know, just as we were back in the game, we were in touch and distance. We all thought we were going to do it. And unfortunately, then they just go coast to coast and, you know, Emily Boulard scores. But we really were in the game. It is good to be positively disappointed. I think these are the conversations we need the team to be in, where we're saying we should have won that game, not, you know, oh, well, we did our best kind of thing. I think that's the position we need to be in going into a World Cup year. And that's what we have to maintain throughout the rest of the Six Nations. But there was a lot of basic errors that, you know, sometimes you do see on the first day of Six Nations, but you can't have 20 turnovers and 31 handling errors. That's too many. You know, you've just coughing up the ball and it's hard enough to get it in these games, so we can't give it away so lightly. But they will learn from that. I think we're going to be a much stronger team this week because of it. But as you said, it's still so disappointing because we've never been that close in recent years, and we get there. And to be honest, we should have been leading that game anyway. We shouldn't have been behind. We had so many opportunities in the first half to go ahead, and it was really disappointing to not execute at certain times. So even to get ourselves back in the game and then not get there was tough to watch. But I do think we'll be a better team because of it. But the handling errors and the basic errors are going to have to go out the window this week, or else we mightn't even be looking at third, you know?
Yeah, and I think those handling errors are, you know, these things are fixable. They're very fixable. It's probably a little bit more time together. It's probably drilling the hands a bit better. But I think, you know, if we look at the stats, we had just over half the possession and just over half the territory. We had plenty of ball time. And I think it's something that we can definitely build on. You know, ticking towards 70 minutes, we got to within 2 points of them. Ilse, did you think we were going to finish out that game ahead? What did you see happening?
So I agree with you guys. Again, if you look at easy outs, that amount of unforced errors, kicking a ball directly into touch when you are in the ascendancy is difficult. It's difficult to rally the troops. And yes, it happened in that first 20 minutes, I think twice in the first 20 minutes, where it's an unforced error. I do think the girls are a very, very tight unit. That's one of the tightest units that I've seen since my day in camp. And they now have that opportunity where they are playing rugby day in, day out. It's not like us who had to go to work and then go to training. They have the opportunity to basically invest in their rugby knowledge to such an extent that it's just gonna build it up. And this is the first step. So we are in a World Cup here. A little bit of first match jitters, of course. I think if we get a bit more front football, which is something we struggled with as well, we got the ball very static from rucks, especially if the forward pack was coming around the end. If we get that ball on front foot and we take that to them, that would have been a much different game for the French. Because when we were doing that, the French had absolutely no answer. Look at how Ailbhe scored that try. She got the ball at pace, running at the defensive line, across the defensive line. So I think the only way is up. And I'm really, really excited to see what they're going to do.
Actually, just a question. for you both. I mean, like, it was great to see the potential that this Irish side has. But with that, we saw loose kicking and handling errors that let them down. When you're in that position on the field, when things aren't going your way, how do you regroup that team and try to bring focus back? Did either of you have any mental tricks or routines on the field that help you handle those kind of high pressure situations and regather a team?
Yeah, I think it's just about regrouping, like in those breaks and plays, and acknowledging like that it's happened, but also accepting that you have to move on. You see them do it a lot where, like, one thing like we would have said previously is you breathe a breath of belief. So you often see them in the circle a lot, and you see them taking 3 deep breaths. I imagine that's what's happening, where 3 deep breaths, they're just resetting and trying to go again. All it takes is one big moment sometimes to turn things around. Like, they were having error on error on error, but they still kept coming back, the way, like, so it does just take, I think, that little regroup. And I think that's probably where we went wrong at times, where, we were defending on the goal line, like Ailbhe Dalton gets a turnover, a bit suspect if you ask me. I think her knee was down, but look, we'll take it. Sometimes you need the rub of the green, and we're finally get out of danger. And then we butcher the clearance, and then we're back under pressure. Like, it's those moments where, and like, the ball has to be kicked into Rose Ed so that it can't go quick even. And we just kept inviting the pressure. So, like, that's where you need senior players. Unfortunately, in those kind of moments, we probably didn't see that enough. I didn't think we managed the exits well at the weekend. And I thought that's ultimately what was inviting pressure. And eventually the dam will break,
Ilse?
Yeah, we basically do the same. Again, if the pressure is on and you need a reset, whenever we come into a group, you take your 3 big deep breaths, breathe it in, breathe it out, and just reset. But it's just, the girls will get the opportunity. There's, like you say, potential. There's potential in this group. It's like, if I wish that I had some of that rugby knowledge at their age that they have now, because it's just, we're gonna skyrocket, and I am really excited to see what they're gonna do.
Do you think there's a real maturity there in terms of a rugby maturity and I suppose a professionalism that has come in now and that just wasn't there 2017?
There's definitely a professionalism in the sense that it's not just about getting paid or the monetary reward that you get for being in the squad. It's the skills, the development of skills. It's also how they are being looked after mentally and how their mental health is being cared for in that group setup now, which is making a massive difference. Because 2017, I think we were looking after each other, but there wasn't the support or the level of support that these girls now have. And that's refreshing, because good, stable rugby players are the best. They will go and they will they will write history. And I think this group can do that. They can write that history.
That's a really good point that you make there when you talk about care. In the coverage at the weekend, we saw Emer Considine talking about care. And, she had a long spell away from the side. She had a child, and then she had an injury quite soon after coming back. She had a long time away, and she spoke about the difference when she came back, that there is a real care there. And, to hear that word care being used, it really felt like something that mattered. It's setting players up for success. I found that very interesting. Chloe, what is it that sets up a player best to perform? What are the tips and tricks? What are things you might bring along on the day? What are things people say to each other? What really gets people going in terms of feeling like they have the platform to perform on?
Yeah, I think on the day performance comes from, like, a lot of it is confidence in your preparation. Like, for people, who come off the bench, if you're coming off the bench and you haven't had as many reps, you're not going to be confident in your performance, because you're going to be worried. Like, so I think, like, all the time they spent and everything, in camp, they're longer camps now for Six Nations, like previously, as Ilse said, like, we used to work Monday to Friday, and we might arrive up to camp late Friday night, and you Saturday, Sunday, and then you go home and you whereas now, like, they're up there Monday to Thursday, they're there Tuesday to Friday, they're there for much longer periods, so their preparation is much stronger, which means they've more analysis, they've more detail, so they can then take confidence in their performance. I think with this group, what I've noticed and what I've seen and heard is they're like really receptive to positivity, and I think we've probably seen a generational shift anyway. I see it with our own teams and club teams that, long gone are the days where people are slated, or you make a mistake and, that's just not the way the world seems to work anymore. So I think that's something you can see in this group. Like, every time anyone made a mistake, someone went over to them. They made sure that they knew, get your head up, I'm here, I have your back. That's the type of group this looks like to me. So if they do that, they know that they have the license to make mistakes. And people are going to make mistakes. I know we're criticizing them for doing it, but it's only because we see the potential they have. That's the only reason we're a little bit frustrated with the handling errors and the turnovers, is because we know how good they were in parts of that game. So we know how good they potentially could have been and won. But I think they have the license to make those errors. And because of that, some of the stuff will come off. Like, it would have been so easy for, like, I think it's Darrow was calling the line out. It would have been so easy for Darrow to go into her shell and say, we're just going to maul that. We're not going to run this trick play. There hadn't been too many mauls prior to that. And she could have made the safe bet of, we'll just maul it. We'll just get it down and drive. And she didn't. Like, she went out of her comfort zone. She made the bold call and it paid off, So I think that's kind of one of the things this team have is they're brave enough to make calls. They won't always get it right. Look, 5 meters out, crossfield kick into touch, and we're all giving out about it. If it came off, it would have been the best thing in the world, So while I still don't think it was the best decision at the time, she does it, and unfortunately the execution is off. But look, it's great that they have that belief to do those things. What we don't need is players who are afraid to play, because that's just not what's going to get us to a World Cup and get us to quarterfinals and semi-finals, and who knows what happens after that.
Yeah, I suppose you don't want your team being cagey. I noticed when you talk about Darrow, for those of you who don't know the star at the wall, she was like a woman possessed for the try by Niamh Jones. Ball comes through the line out, she's down, she passes the ball off, and if you look back on the footage, she is calling in the numbers, she's waving her hands, she's driving that. She stuck it in reverse in speed, and she literally drove that maul. She did half the work in that maul. I think what you talk about, players being, having a license to do what they want to do, I think that's amazing. In terms of nicknames, Darrow being one of them, we have a few nicknames in the squad who've Tricky, Noddy and the likes. Where do these nicknames come from?
Well, like, I suppose Darrow is just short for Dorothy. Yeah, Tricky is, the song Run DMC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, like, this was even before I was in a squad with Tricky, that was her first cap song, maybe, or something along those lines. So she's just been known as Tricky forever. Noddy, I suppose, is fairly self-explanatory, but...
Does anyone have video of that? It just, we can put it on the socials, be no bother,
what happens on tour stays on tour and all that,
Brilliant.
But some people get unfortunate nicknames then as well, and they just stick, so, you're not always blessed with them.
So what was your nickname?
I had a very particular nickname back in South Africa, which I don't want to relive. Please don't make me relive it.
That's absolutely fair enough.
I will tell you what it was. But my nickname back home was Killer, because I had a habit of putting people in unfortunate positions in the back of ambulances.
I can see that.
And to take one of my first caps, or one of my first rugby games I played, I was a very stupid 17, 18-year-old, and I made a tackle on the 10. I didn't get my head out of the way quick enough and ended up connecting my side of my head with the side of the player's hip. I got 12 stitches in my head, and she had a fractured pelvis.
Oh, wow.
Because that was unhinged, very unhinged. I'm not unhinged anymore, take my word for it. I'm very calm now.
But your head is very hard. My God.
Yeah. Ow.
Like rock.
And, wow. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So in terms of nicknames, what are some of the best nicknames you've come across over the years?
Maz, of course. Maz
Riley?
Maz Riley.
Yeah.
Molly was her name, Malloy.
Oh, Claire Malloy, yeah.
When I was in camp, they called me Bridie. No idea why. That's just what they called me, and I just
Such an
sucked it
Irish
up.
thing,
I'm not
such an Irish
even gonna.
thing.
Yeah, they were trying to make me look and sound more Irish until I opened my mouth.
How are you, Bridie? Chloe, any good nicknames you come across?
Yeah, like we've just a habit at Bowes just to call people whatever we want, like for absolutely no reason. So like Claire Bennett, our second row, it's so weird to call her Claire because she's literally called Massey, as in after the tractor, for no reason. Like, it's so unfortunate, but when people call her Claire, everyone is like trying to figure it out. And then we realise it's Massey and she's had no choice in the matter. So that was that. Another girl is just Blanche, like as in Blanche from Corrie, because we had too many Kiras and we just decided that was her new name. So, you know, some of them don't even have reason or rhyme. Like we'll be on a bus and we'll just say, actually, I don't like your name anymore. And that's it. So, you know, don't ever come on the bus if you don't want a new name.
Nobody has a choice in the matter at all. To get back into a little bit of the stuff in the Irish game, I want to touch on Niamh O'Dowd as a former prop, Ilse, and a former not so happy with playing prop, Chloe. What do you think of Niamh O'Dowd? To me, she's kind of the quiet operator, but she did 77 minutes, just the top tackler out of the Irish women, 14 carries. She gets through a lot of work.
She is a young prop that has, again, potential. The scrummaging work is phenomenal. At Blue said, she operates. You can see it in the way that she slips a bind here, pushes up with the shoulder, roll the one shoulder forward to get in under that tight head. But it's her work rate around the park. And I've always been a big fan of strong mobile props that gets around the park and can do their job, because that's the future of women's rugby, is if you've got a mobile pack and suddenly you've got a prop that runs like a back rower making the same amount of tackles, you are literally in paradise.
It's interesting to see the dynamic of prop that we have in women's rugby, that it doesn't follow the kind of template that the men's rugby does. I mean, Chloe, you played, you know, prop and back row. We have the likes of Dervin Nicaverd, who hooks and plays back row. You know, it seems to be a lot more interchangeable. That, you know, you wouldn't see that in the men's game. You're a front row, and that's that. Is it a different dynamic a lot with the women's? Is there a lot more moving positions? Is the prop in a women's game typically more dynamic anyway?
Yeah, like I suppose even when you look at not just our team, like the English women's team, like Sarah Byrne was a former centre, you know, and she's a prop. And when you said the props who run like the back rows, Ilse, that's who I see. Like, you know, she's a phenomenal mobile prop. Like, she'll go through you and then she'll step you, you know, you just don't know what you're going to get. It's kind of tough. Like, I suppose there is so many differences with the men's and the women's game. I think I don't want to say set piece is less important, because it is obviously vitally important, but I do think when it comes to scrum, we are less reliant on it in the women's game than the men's game. Now, part of me wonders, is that to do with kicking range? Like for men's games, you know, you're really trying to win penalties, and is it because of that kicking range that typically they have bigger boots, you know, and they take their 3 points, and, you know, when they put on who they're putting on the bench, it's who's going to win us a penalty in the 79th minute, you know, to win the game. So like you look at the Bulls Leinster game, you know, they bring on a front row who wins the penalty to beat Leinster. So that's how I think strategically they plan. For the women's game, like typically they are much more high scoring. So like you're kind of thinking of tries, you know, it's kind of like, I don't want to say goals in hurling, but in women's rugby, tries win games. There obviously is going to be those games where 2s and 3s matter, but typically they're quite free-flowing, high-scoring games. So I think teams think about who's going to get around the park. Like having a prop who makes 14 tackles, 14 carries, along with your back row who makes 17, you know, those numbers add up. And it means you can retain the ball a lot better because they're fit and they can consistently get up and carry again, consistently get up. Or if you're defending, they're going to keep making those tackles. And, you know, eventually someone's going to break, and if you're the fitter team, then you have a good chance of coming out on top if technique is there, which for someone like Niamh O'Dowd it is. Like, she had the second most dominant tackles as well. She had 2 dominant tackles behind Linda, who was the other prop, who had 3 dominant tackles in the game, and that's not even including the amount of doubles they had. So I do think that kind of fitness stands to us in women's rugby a little bit more. Not that the men aren't fit, but I just think the games are a little bit different in how they pan out.
Okay, we'll move on to Scotland versus Wales. I think it was an interesting matchup between Scotland and Wales at the weekend, in that they're typically well enough matched as sides. I think, Wales have obviously had their troubles over the past few years, not too dissimilar to what the Irish women have gone through. A lot of issues around contracts more recently. But, Wales were, I think, buoyed by Sean Lynn coming in, albeit very belatedly. I think he had something like 24 or 48 hours with them before the match started. Did we see a different Wales? Did we see potential? Did we see maybe a shift in mentality? Is there hope for this Welsh side to pull it out of somewhere and go on and not be wooden spoon holders again this year?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, they definitely were reliant on those kind of winning combos they had from the Gloucester game, I would have said. You could see the work Bette Lewis and Kate Williams were doing in the back row like that. And unfortunately, from another side of it, then, they have a player sent off as well who also was in the PWR, but you could see that that's what they relied on, those kind of confidence players. I honestly thought after the first half they were going to win, and Scotland just managed to come back. So while Wales are growing, and this is not my nervousness, but for them is, yes, they are growing, but everyone is growing. So they're already behind. So their pace of growth has to become much quicker now, because all teams are excelling. Like, Scotland just, they really managed to dig in, because I thought they were in trouble after that first 15 minutes. I thought, geez, Wales are going to really show up here and they're going to pull it out of the bag. I think Wales are missing a bit of depth, if I'm honest. And Tui Pilatu is a big loss for them.
Yeah.
Having Kelsey Jones coming back, and not that Karis Phillips didn't do a great job, but, I just think they need other players coming in now who are going to bring that impact. So I do think depth is a small bit of an issue for them, but I still see the potential in it. You could see that they had come on leaps and bounds from the previous year. Like, I think they'll put it up. I think they'll be in the game with us, and I think the Italy game will be really strong for them as well. But they have a tough ass now this weekend, England. So they'll have to, Sean is going to have to dig in with them to kind of pull a performance out of somewhere. Otherwise, it could be a long day at the office.
You mentioned there the red card. So Georgia Evans got a red card. It was technically 2 yellows. So she is free to play next week. But the Evie Gallagher red card, Ilse, what did you make of that? It was in a ruck, and I think she was dropping, and she dropped onto a player's leg. And I think, as an outsider looking in and somebody who doesn't know a lot about those kind of interactions, it kind of seems like something that's a little bit forgivable, but then at the same time, you're threatening somebody's knee,
Well, the law very clearly states that you should not allowed to make any contact with the lower limb, whether that is direct contact or especially not a twisting motion. She came through that ruck. She did go off her feet. She did make side-on turning contact with that leg. You're going back to the France game where you had Dupont in a similar position, where he got cleared out, and again, serious injury. The 2 players, or the player that was involved in that, was seen different. But for me, that was a definite. If someone clears me out like that, I hope they were being sent off. But that is just, it shows you again the education around, you need to know what you can get away with in rugby. And unfortunately for her, she didn't get away with that. But that had a massive impact on that.
It was definitely an interesting game, and that the cards played a huge impact in the game for both sides, I think. It was, and we saw in the Irish game as well, we saw a 20-minute red card. Vernier, 45 minutes into the game, she gets a red card. She shoots out of the line. She comes up on Eve Higgins, and head clash. He doesn't dip at all, clash your heads. Eve Higgins hits the floor. For me, that was a red all day, and you just couldn't mitigate for that in any way. There was nothing in terms of Eve Higgins dipping. It was red all day. It's interesting to see 3 red cards across the one weekend in 3 games. We saw as well in the England game, while there was no red card infractions, the TMO was really, really involved in that game. A lot of people were complaining about the fact that the referee had to go from one end of the pitch to another just to review anything, and some things that were very obvious that the TMO could have just informed the referee on. What does that do to a game when there's those many stoppages and unnecessary stoppages? And what does it do to a team when you go a player down, whether it's for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or the full game? How do you regroup from that? How do you keep going? How do you adjust your tactics?
So, for the first thing is, it's about errors. We are playing international rugby that is very small margins. You can win and lose a game based on a referee's decision, whether it's correct or incorrect. You as a player, you as a supporter, have to have the respect for that referee to just go and say, it's happened, referee's decision, check the scoreboard, is what a Frick de Preux who played for South Africa always used to say, is just check the scoreboard. I think it has an impact on how players and teams perform after that. Yes, you have a bit of drive to show and to prove that we're not going to let you get an easy out because we have a player in the bin. So you do start managing your defensive setup you will find a lot more soft defense in order to sort of gather them or banana them into touch. You will find that you will try and slow their rucks down in order to give your players enough time to get around. So yeah, if I was playing, that's all that we try to do. But it is that you need to have that, okay, it's happened, we park it, what's next mentality to go on. Because if I get a card, if I dwell on every card I've gotten in my entire career, I would still be sat in the corner.
Chloe, for you, did you think that the Irish game was heavily impacted by that red card? And do you think possibly Ireland were a bit flattered in having to deal with that red card or getting the advantage of that red card?
Considering they were down and back for 20 minutes and we scored 3 maul tries, I don't think we took advantage of it, if I'm really honest. We never took the advantage of the extra number in the back line. And even at that, like if we had wingers getting off wings, we would have had 2 extra numbers in the back line. So I really think we struggled in that aspect completely. We should have been, like, once that happened, I thought we should have actually altered our game plan, but we did the same thing over and over again for that 20 minutes. Like, they were down their 12, who was their defensive leader, like Vernier. She was player of the tournament a couple of seasons ago. She's a fantastic player, probably one of the best that they had, and they lost her. And we just never really attacked. Like, we should have been going after that 12 channel. 13 has to jam in, which means now either the 15 covers high and there's kick space in behind, or the 15 doesn't cover and we have a number overboard. But we never really addressed that at all, which was that was something that kind of was frustrating, I found, was the game plan never changed once Vernier was sent off. And it should have, because, like, if, I'm sure Ilse will agree, if they're down a prop, if I was playing a team and a prop was sin binned or a forward was sin binned, I'd be going after them at line out, or I'd be going after them at scrum. So same on the opposite. Like, if you're down a back, you have to get after them in open space, because they now go from 4 people defending 60 metres to 3 people, so yeah, like 4v1s, 4v, like, it should have been, we should have scored a couple of more tries, I thought, especially in that back line with that red card.
One thing that I have noticed, and it's very big in women's rugby, is that we get given a plan. I don't know if you've realised that, we get given a plan. The coach says, this is what you want to do, and we stick to that like the law. There's very little times, or very few times, where players would be like, do you know what? This is what's presenting with us now. How about we try the following? In women's rugby, we do stick to game plan for better and for worse, which is not always the right thing to do.
Do you think then there's a lack of plan Bs or plan Cs that if if the team sees something happening in front of them, if there's major change to the game in terms of injury or cards, that there isn't a kind of a structured plan to move to? Or is it that the call isn't coming in to move to that structured plan?
I don't think that the call, it's not necessarily to do with calls. I think it's to do with rugby IQ and experience and literally trusting the players that play around you to say, well, we're all buying into this and we are now taking charge of what we are doing on the pitch and playing what we're seeing. Now, if you are fairly new to the game, it's easy to stick and to fall into that rut of I'm just sticking to this plan. We're doing the same thing. You have a ruck, you have a runner off your 10, you have a pot off the 10, we go to the edge. Most teams play like that. And if you looked at the Irish women, you looked at England, you looked at France, we all did that. The moment we were presented with the opportunity, where there was a weak link in their line, whether it was the 12 that went off for a card, or whether it was the 8 that went off for a card in Wales, the Wales-Scotland game, there were very few times where that was actually completely and utterly taken advantage of.
Chloe, was that the same for you? Did you feel it was one structure that we just stuck to and we just didn't move from it? Or we couldn't move from it? We were kind of stuck in the mud in that sense.
Yeah, and like I did kind of say this last week, that this was my worry, that our plan is to kick and to kick a lot. And, that I would worry that if that wasn't working, what would we do? And it wasn't even that it wasn't working, the weekend, but it just needed to be different. Like we have incredible ball players, and I just couldn't understand why Amy Lee wasn't getting off her wing. I couldn't understand why Anna McGann wasn't getting off her wing, why they weren't looking for work. The amount of times where we went out the back of Aoife Dalton or Eve to Stacey, who ran across the pitch because there was not an extra number there, was, it was really poor. We did fix the mistake at times because there was a lot of kick space in behind, and, Stacey put in a little grubber that Anna McGann nearly got to, but I thought if Lee had worked off that wing, or the opposite way around as well, if Anna had worked off that wing, and got outside Stacey, I think we would have scored a lot more tries. So I just wonder, was that the game plan? Then, it comes up to is it the game plan, or do the players, not know, or but for me, wingers need to work. I like wingers that swing around, who add numbers to the line, who come in off the outside shoulders of rucks. Emily Lane was scooting a lot, I thought. I thought there's a time and a place for a scoot. And I thought in their 22, that scoot killed us, because every time she took a step, it allowed for line speed. And that's where I felt we were getting smashed a little bit. But what's really good about a scoot is if you have a lingering winger, because then they have to commit to someone. So if you have a winger coming off a shoulder and Emily Lane is scooting, either the winger's going through the gap or Emily Lane was. But I just felt that we didn't do that. And there was so much opportunity to make those line breaks by doing those small things that, let's be honest, doesn't take talent to get off your wing and look like you're busy. That's for me is a non-negotiable. And I really don't want to say it's a work rate thing, because Lee and Anna McGann are really hard workers. So that's why I wonder, is it the game plan? Lee is one of the hardest workers in the country, so I'm not going to sit here, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and say Lee isn't working, because I know she is. But I just wonder why the game plan is that way then, because for me, it was something I noticed in the first half, and I was like, why are we not getting off the wing to add numbers elsewhere? Maybe it's to do with the kick plan that, because if they get off the wing and then we kick the ball away, we're lacking someone on that side of the pitch. I don't know, but I'd like to see our wingers get in and get busy and get stuck in a little bit more.
Interesting when you talk about Amy Lee Costigan. First go of captain on the international stage, right into the France game as Six Nations captain. It's, an interesting place for her to be. It's high pressure. When you take over as captain, does your game adjust does how you interact with others adjust? Is it a lot of pressure that you kind of, maybe you lose an edge in your game a little bit because you've got so much other responsibility? Both of you have captain sides. Ilse, I'll come to you first. Did you find that anything changed when you became captain?
To me, it always seems that if I'm captaining a team, I am the person who leads, and I have to lead by example. So I cannot afford to stand and ruck watch. I cannot afford to not be in the right place. And again, I feel like I cannot say anything to someone who is doing that if I'm doing exactly the same thing. It makes me a hypocrite if I do. So it's that little bit of pressure that I find that some of the best games I've played at captain. But then I've had some really great games where I wasn't even remotely involved in captaincy. I was a regular broom holder like the rest of us. You just sweep it clean. But yeah, I do think it brings an element. It brings an element of, I don't want to say pressure, because pressure it's a privilege. Like you pick up, if you feel under pressure, it means that you do not believe that you have everything that will put you in the position where you can lead the people that's supposed to be following you. But no, I think it's a bit of pressure, and you're in that privileged position where you are leading people, and you are not just concerned for your own game, but you're concerned and you feel you bear the brunt for how everybody else performs. And I do think there might have been a little bit of that. But again, she has led the Irish team at sevens in different sevens competitions around the world. So it's not something that she's new to. And she is captain material because she does lead by example. Like, you can follow. If I was on that team, I would follow into battle.
Chloe, for you, captaining obviously UL and Munster, does your game shift in any way? Does your mentality shift? Does your engagement with others shift?
Not really. I think, like Ilse, I had the exact phrase that pressure is a privilege. Like for me, and I heard this quote last week and it really resonated with me. It's like a leader is an ordinary person with an extraordinary opportunity, right? So like, I think that's an absolute privilege to have that. I think as captain and as a leader, like one of your main roles is to enable others to do the same. Like I always tell our team to be leaders in their own right. Don't wait for someone to do something. Be the person that goes and does it. So I would like us to have 15 leaders on the pitch, not one. Yes, I'm the person who talks to the ref, and probably because I'm in trouble the most. So maybe it suits safe to talk to me. But it also keeps, like, for someone who is, and you know what it is, like I'm a commentator of the game as I play it. I'll probably tell you, like, I'm yapping as I'm going around the pitch, like, but half of it is because I just, like, see the game of rugby and I commentate as I go, and I don't even realise I'm doing it. And obviously then it kind of annoys the refs a little bit. So it probably helps a little that I'm captain, that I get away with it a bit more. But it is a privilege. Like, I love doing it, but I have like really good backup, like in, like, you know, there's loads of leaders that I also go to, you know, like I don't go talk to the backs about things. I'll speak to Steph Noonan, our vice captain, and she'll lead in that aspects. You know, like when it comes to defence, like we have defensive leaders, you know, it's not me, like, so I think like that is, you just enable people around you and you try and inspire them to become leaders. And then, you know, at the end of the day, then all I do is the toss, speak to the ref, and hopefully lift a cup at the end of the season. You know, that's the only difference it is for me. I completely agree with Ilse on Amy Lee. I would follow her into war. You know, she is an incredible person. She is like, and this is what I've heard, like she's just everyone's person. Like she gets on with everyone. You know, she, as Ilse said, like has led Ireland sevens. So it's not really a surprise. Personally, I like the captain to be a little closer to the ref, but I could see Niamh Jones was doing that. So that was obviously something they spoke about to the ref, you know, before the game. I'd imagine, you know, like it is hard. I'm out here on the wing. Niamh is going to talk to you about what's going on in the pitch. And then if you have that open conversation with a ref, they're usually quite, you know, receptive to it versus Niamh just coming to the ref in the middle of the game. But like that, you could see it wasn't just Lee, like Tricky led the team out. They stood together for the anthem. Niamh was there as well. Like, so it definitely was the power of three. So while Lee was obviously given the captaincy, I do think Tricky pretty much is still, you know, the captain of the team. But Lee was just, you know, and the right choice, I think. You know, she was a great choice for captain. She's a great person, and she is an incredible leader as well. And as we said, she leads by example. She works her socks off. She gives everything to the game.
Okay, we better talk about the England game a little bit. So, for me, I don't know about you guys, hugely a game of two halves, two different Englands. One very beatable, one maybe even a little bit beatable. Is that for you guys? Is that the changes? Obviously, there's a little bit of experimentation in there. Any team that has Ellie Kildunn on the bench, they're not putting out their strongest team. But I don't think they were a weak side either. Do you think that something has changed there? Are they beatable?
Are they beatable? I don't know. I'm still on the fence. Like, please God, they are. Like, I think England did this like last year as well, or, you know, when they come to the first few games, they mix a lot and they try find their strongest 15 come France, I suppose. Like, it looks like they were just going to kick on and it was going to be 60, 70 points. I think it was more of a testament to Italy. I thought, like, defensively, like the tackle numbers they put up defensively was so solid. I also thought the sting being taken out of the game by the amount of TMO calls didn't suit England. I thought that was one thing that probably suited Italy more than England. Like, England wanted the fast pace so that they can get their Mia Venners and Ellie Kildunns when she's on, you know, running at tired bodies. But there was a lot of breaks like that. The match went on for hours. I actually found, like, it was a game that I actually, out of the three, enjoyed the least because there was so much stoppages. I found it so hard to stay focused watching it. England, like that, were beatable. I don't think they'll be that vulnerable again. I think they still, you know, when they think Alex Matthews is back for that game, like, she's, like, after getting a red card, so she's 3-game ban. Like, she is a big loss, I think, for them. Like, they do have fantastic players coming through, but I think she's back for the Ireland game, so great for us. That's her game back. So can't wait for that. You know, the players they even left out of the squad, you know, is scary. They'd have walked into any other squad. So in this Six Nations, I think the day to beat them was Sunday and Italy didn't. So I still don't think they're beatable. I still think they'll walk the Six Nations in Grand Slam.
Ilse, do you think England are using this a little bit as a training ground for the World Cup? Is this time to experiment?
Of course they are. Perfect opportunity. You can blood new players coming through. You can see what they look like in pressure situations. But one thing we must say is that Italian defensive set was something else. I agree with Chloe. Watching that game was like watching paint dry. It was hard work, but it was made better by that Italian defensive set. The fact that they basically England put all their points on the first half and then cruised. They literally took their foot off the gas and they cruised. And that was opportunity again. Try new things, try new combinations, put a couple of new plays into play to see how it works out. And if it doesn't work, then bin it. But it was just an opportunity for English players to put their hand up for selection for that big event in the summer for the World Cup.
Speaking of putting their hand up, Roland a 10, I think she had a bit of an iffy game. You know, she tried some things, she didn't pull them off. I think, looking at the game myself, I felt like Aitchison was really the one leading, particularly when it came to kicking out of hand. Chloe, did you think that she might have damaged her chances?
Yeah, she made a couple of crucial errors that I suppose in any other team you might get away with, but when you're a 10 competing for a spot against Aitchison and Zoe Harrison, you know, it's a really competitive environment. Like, the biggest killer for me was the goal line dropout that went out in the full that the Italians scored off, but then it was brought back. But, you know, that was poor. And from what the commentator said, like, she wants to play 10, not 12. So, you know, if she set her stall out, she really needed to back it up with a stronger performance. I'm sure she'll get another shot. You know, that won't be it because, you know, there's 5 games in this series. She'll get a shot off the bench, but I think, you know, she's going to have to play extremely well the next time she gets a goal because Zoe Harrison's like a really strong player as well. So I think she, for me, would be the first choice. Aitchison obviously is brilliant too, and they both cover, I suppose they all cover 10 and 12, but depending on what team you're playing, you know, like you might want a Tatiana Hurd in there who's, you know, a bit more of a stronger ball carrier than the other two, than the three of them, I would say. So, you know, you kind of have to stake your claim at 10 and then hope that the other two don't play as well. But yeah, I thought a couple of poor kicks and the goal line dropout for me was just criminal.
I think going into next week, I think England will probably be another beast entirely going into their next game. Do you think Italy will be a little bit bruised potentially after the England game, or do you think they're going to be rejuvenated and have been aiming for the Ireland game more so than the England game? What kind of an Italian side do you expect to see this weekend for us?
Yeah, I think the hope is that the bodies are sore. They made a colossal amount of tackles, but, I do think they'll have taken a lot of solace from that. Like they had a couple of tries chalked off. They defended for a long period of that game, and they had a lot of tackles, but they had a lot of turnovers as well. So, like, defensively, they're really strong. I think they'll be up for it, especially at home, and we're technically still the underdog. If you think about it, they've beaten us 2 years in a row. I think we'll win. I do think we'll come through that game and it'll be a true measure of us, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think that game is going to be a Trojan war, and, there might be 5 or 7 points in the difference, but, Italy definitely showed up and they were tough stuff the weekend.
So what's your predictions for the game at the weekend in Parma?
I agree. I think it's going to be an absolute war of attrition. Whoever wants it more on that day is going to take it. The Italian defence proved that they can silence England for, about 30 minutes of that second half.
40 minutes out of score, yeah.
They were just soaking them up. England were throwing everything and the kitchen sink sometimes at them, and they were just going. So, yes, we hope there's a couple of sore Italian bodies, but I believe that the Irish girls, if you look at how we use our forwards, if we use our forwards to suck them in and create that space on the outside with your winger and your fullback coming in looking for work, creating that one-on-ones on the outside, you are going to literally going to play with Italy. So I do think that I'm going to put my money on Ireland, even though they haven't beaten them for 2 years. I believe the Irish girls are gonna do one on them.
By a score? By more?
Hopefully by a score. Like I said, it's going to be a war of attrition. They're going to have to dig deep and go to some dark places, but they have the ability, they have the energy, they have the skill set. All they just need to do is just clean up those handling errors, clean up those unforced errors, but again, on any given Sunday, that ball can go to hand. That ball gets passed behind you. It drops suddenly out of nowhere. You put a 0.5 millimeter too much on the ball and it's out directly. So anything can happen, but I do think Ireland's going to put it through.
We're going to have a little bit of fun now. So, Ilse, we'll have you go first. This is the lucky dip. So you're going to pick a number between 1 and 15, and that's going to be your question.
Go for my shirt number 3.
Shirt number 3. So the question is, what's one thing your family or friends do that always brings you back down to earth after a big game or a win?
One thing they do, one thing they say, my mom would ask me, is that all you can do?
Are you sure she's not an Irish mother?
What do you mean you've only scored 2 tries? Is that all of it?
Oh, there's nothing like a mammy to bring you back down to earth, all right, yeah. I think that's an international language.
And then the other thing she would ask you, are you sure you're really fit?
Oh, God, wow.
All fun and
it's harsh
funny
going.
games.
Oh, that's tough. You spend a while picking
My
yourself
mom is
up after
actually
that
fitter
one.
than me. I would like to point that out. My mom is fitter than me. At 60, she's doing high rocks. I don't know what's wrong with her. She must be running from something. I'm not entirely sure what.
Amazing. Thank you, Ilse. Okay, Chloe. Number between 1 and 15, minus 3. That's gone now.
Gosh, I'll have to go 8, so if we're going jersey
You'll
numbers.
have to go 8. Right. If you'd never played rugby, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
I'd probably be in the pub at Nicole Cronin at 12 o'clock every day.
And she'd be up for it too, I'd say.
Yeah. And I'd be having a great time. I think it would be a great life, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't sound half bad, actually, yeah.
No, it sounds good. I might kick in the retirement early and give it a
I was
go.
going to say, but it might be on the cards yet, you know. I mean, never say never.
Reminiscing about the good old days.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Chloe and Ilse, for your incredible insights. Ilse in particular, there's some rugby wisdom coming out of you. I'd love to hear it. Thank you all for listening. Please help us by following, sharing and rating our podcast, and catch our episode next week. Keep on rocking.